Detective Olivia Chen squinted at the holographic crime scene reconstruction floating above her desk. The victim, a middle-aged human male, lay sprawled on the floor of his high-rise apartment, his unseeing eyes staring at the ceiling. The cause of death was clear, a precise incision at the base of the skull, characteristic of an Andromedan blade. "What do you think, Kax?" Olivia asked, glancing at her partner. Detective Kax'loran, a towering Sirian with iridescent scales and multifaceted eyes, leaned in closer to examine the hologram. His long, slender fingers manipulated the image, zooming in on the wound. "It appears straightforward," Kax replied, his voice a melodious hum. "The cut is clean, efficient, typical Andromedan assassination technique." Olivia nodded, but something nagged at her. "Too straightforward, if you ask me. Why would an Andromedan be so sloppy as to leave such an obvious calling card?" It had been nearly 50 years since the first alien races made contact with Earth. The initial panic and xenophobia had gradually given way to an uneasy coexistence, and eventually, to integration. Now, New York City was a melting pot, not just of human cultures, but of interstellar civilizations as well. Olivia and Kax had been partners for 3 years, part of the interspecies crime unit. They'd seen their fair share of bizarre cases, but this one felt different. "Perhaps it was meant to appear obvious," Kax suggested, his scales shifting color slightly as he pondered. "A deliberate misdirection." Olivia nodded, her suspicions confirmed by her partner's insight. "My thoughts exactly. Let's head to the crime scene. I want to see this place for myself." As they left the precinct, the bustling streets of New York greeted them. Hovercars zipped between skyscrapers that stretched impossibly high, their upper levels disappearing into the clouds. Holographic advertisements featuring both human and alien products flashed on every surface. Olivia and Kax made their way to a nearby transit hub, boarding a sleek maglev train that would take them to the victim's neighborhood. As they settled into their seats, Olivia couldn't help but marvel at how much the city had changed in her lifetime. The integration of alien technology had transformed every aspect of daily life, from transportation to communication to healthcare. "What do we know about the victim?" Kax asked, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the passing cityscape. Olivia pulled up the case file on her wrist-mounted holoprojector. Dr. Elias Reeves, 52 years old, xenobiologist specializing in interspecies genetics. He worked at the Galactic Research Institute. Kax's antennae twitched with interest. A scientist studying alien genetics? That could be significant. "My thoughts exactly," Olivia agreed. His work might have made him some enemies, or some very interested parties. The train glided to a stop, and they disembarked into a wealthy residential district. The victim's building loomed before them, a gleaming spire of glass and metal that seemed to defy gravity. As they approached the entrance, a holographic barrier flickered to life, displaying a crime scene warning. Olivia and Kax flashed their badges and the barrier dissipated, allowing them entry. The apartment was on the 157th floor. As the elevator whisked them upwards, Olivia felt a familiar tension building in her gut. No matter how many crime scenes she'd visited, that feeling never went away. The doors slid open, revealing a spacious penthouse apartment. The first thing that struck Olivia was the view floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic vista of the city below. Alien ships and human aircraft weaving between the towering structures. "Quite a place," Olivia muttered, taking in the luxurious furnishings and state-of-the-art technology scattered throughout the room. Kax nodded, his eyes scanning the area methodically. "Indeed, it seems Dr. Reeves was well compensated for his work." They made their way to the study where the body had been found. The room was a mess, papers strewn about, drawers pulled open, and furniture overturned. In the center of the chaos lay a faint outline where the body had been. Olivia crouched down, examining the floor. No signs of a forced entry. The killer either had access or was let in willingly. Kax moved to the desk, his long fingers delicately sifting through the scattered documents. "These appear to be research notes, highly technical. I can make out references to various alien species' genetic structures." As Olivia stood up, something caught her eye. A small metallic object glinted from beneath a fallen chair. She carefully retrieved it, holding it up to the light. "What do you make of this, Kax?" The Sirian detective leaned in, his compound eyes focusing on the object. "It appears to be a data chip. Terran manufacture, but with some modifications." Olivia nodded, slipping the chip into an evidence bag. "Let's get this back to the lab. It might give us some answers." As they continued to search the apartment, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something obvious. The scene felt staged, like a poor imitation of an Andromedan hit. "Kax," she said suddenly, "what do you smell?" The Sirian's antennae twitched as he focused on his olfactory senses. Nothing unusual. The scent of the victim, cleaning products, the usual odors of a human dwelling. "Exactly," Olivia said, snapping her fingers. "If an Andromedan had been here, wouldn't there be some trace of their distinctive pheromones?" Kax's scales rippled with excitement. "An excellent observation, Detective Chen. The absence of evidence is indeed evidence itself." Their suspicions growing, they finished processing the scene and headed back to the precinct. The data chip they'd found was their best lead, and Olivia was eager to see what secrets it might hold. Back at the station, they handed the chip over to the tech division for analysis. While they waited for results, Olivia and Kax dug deeper into Dr. Reeves's background. "Look at this," Olivia said, pointing to her screen. Reeves had been working on a classified project for the past 6 months, something called Project Chimera. Kax leaned in, his eyes rapidly scanning the information. "Intriguing. The project details are heavily redacted, but I see references to genetic compatibility and hybridization." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. Hybridization, as in human-alien hybrids. Before Kax could respond, a notification pinged on their screens. The tech division had finished analyzing the data chip. "Let's see what we've got," Olivia said, pulling up the report. The chip contained encrypted files, most of which the tech team hadn't been able to crack. But what they had decrypted was explosive. "Holy shit," Olivia breathed, her eyes widening as she read. The files detailed a secret government program aimed at creating human-alien hybrids. The goal, apparently, was to develop individuals with the strengths of multiple species, the adaptability of humans, the telepathic abilities of Centaurians, the physical prowess of Sirians, and so on. "This is unprecedented," Kax said, his usual calm demeanor shaken. "The ethical implications alone are staggering." Olivia nodded grimly. "And it explains why someone might want Reeves dead. This kind of research, it could change everything, or start a war." As they delved deeper into the files, a name kept appearing: Dr. Lyra Vance, a colleague of Reeves at the Galactic Research Institute. "We need to talk to her," Olivia said, already standing up. "She might be our best lead, or our next victim." They raced to the Galactic Research Institute, a massive complex on the outskirts of the city. The building was a marvel of human and alien architecture, its twisting spires and organic curves defying conventional design. As they approached the reception desk, Olivia flashed her badge. "We need to speak with Dr. Lyra Vance immediately. It's urgent." The receptionist, a holographic AI, processed the request. "I'm sorry, but Dr. Vance is not in the building. She hasn't reported for work in 2 days." Olivia and Kax exchanged worried glances. "We need her home address now," Olivia demanded. With the information in hand, they rushed to Dr. Vance's apartment. The building was in a quieter part of the city, away from the hustle and bustle of the main thoroughfares. As they approached Vance's door, Kax held up a hand, his antennae twitching. "I smell something unusual." Olivia nodded, drawing her weapon. "On 3, 1, 2, 3. They burst through the door, weapons at the ready. The apartment was dark and silent. Olivia fumbled for the light switch, and as the room illuminated, they both gasped. The apartment was in disarray, much like Reeves had been, but there, slumped over her desk, was Dr. Lyra Vance. She was clearly dead, a familiar wound at the base of her skull. "Damn it," Olivia muttered, holstering her weapon. "We're too late." Kax moved to examine the body while Olivia called it in. As she finished the call, she noticed her partner had gone very still. "Kax, what is it?" The Sirian detective turned to her, his scales a mix of confusion and excitement. "Detective Chen, you need to see this." Olivia approached the body, and Kax gently tilted Dr. Vance's head to the side. There, partially hidden by her hair, was a small, scale-like patch on her neck. "Is that—" Olivia began, not quite believing her eyes. Kax nodded solemnly. "Sirian scales. It appears Dr. Vance was more than just a researcher in Project Chimera. She was a subject." The implications hit Olivia like a punch to the gut. If Vance was a hybrid, how many others were out there? And more importantly, who was killing them and why? As the crime scene unit arrived and began processing the scene, Olivia and Kax huddled in a corner, speaking in hushed tones. "This case just got a lot bigger than a simple murder," Olivia said, running a hand through her hair. "We're talking about a government conspiracy, secret human-alien hybrids, and now multiple killings." Kax nodded, his antennae twitching thoughtfully. "Indeed. The question is, who stands to benefit from eliminating these hybrids? And who had the power to keep this project hidden for so long?" Olivia's mind raced through the possibilities. It could be anyone. Anti-alien extremists who see the hybrids as an abomination. Rival governments or corporations trying to steal the research. Hell, it could even be one of the alien races, afraid of what these hybrids might mean for the balance of power. Or, Kax added, his voice low, it could be someone within the project itself. Perhaps the hybrids didn't turn out as planned, and now they're cleaning up loose ends. The thought sent a chill down Olivia's spine. "We need to go back to the beginning. Let's head to the Galactic Research Institute and see what we can dig up on Project Chimera." As they left Dr. Vance's apartment, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She glanced around the street, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Just the usual mix of humans and aliens going about their day. The Galactic Research Institute loomed before them once again, its twisting architecture seeming more ominous now that they knew what secrets it held. They flashed their badges at the reception AI and made their way to the xenobiology department. The labs were a flurry of activity, with scientists of various species working side by side on projects that pushed the boundaries of interstellar biology. Under different circumstances, Olivia might have been fascinated. Now she viewed everything with suspicion. They found the head of the department, Dr. Arjun Patel, in his office. The elderly scientist looked up as they entered, his augmented eyes whirring as they focused on the detectives. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone wary. Olivia cut straight to the chase. "We're here about Project Chimera, Dr. Patel, and the deaths of Dr. Reeves and Dr. Vance." Patel's face paled, and he slumped back in his chair. "I was afraid of this," he muttered. "I told them it was too dangerous, but they wouldn't listen." "Who wouldn't listen?" Kax pressed, leaning forward. Patel sighed, suddenly looking every bit his advanced age. "The backers of the project, government officials, corporate interests, even some alien representatives. They all saw the potential in human-alien hybrids, but none of them wanted to consider the risks." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "What kind of risks are we talking about, Doctor?" "Where to begin?" Patel said, shaking his head. "The physical risks to the subjects themselves, incompatible physiologies, unforeseen genetic interactions, the societal risks of introducing a new species, essentially. And then there were the security risks." "Security risks?" Kax echoed, his scales shifting color with interest. Patel nodded grimly. "Think about it. We were creating beings with the combined abilities of multiple species, strength, intelligence, psychic powers. In the wrong hands, they could be living weapons." Olivia felt a headache coming on. This case was getting more complicated by the minute. "Dr. Patel, we need access to all of Project Chimera's files, and a list of everyone involved, scientists, subjects, backers, everyone." Patel hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'll give you what I can. But be careful, detectives. There are powerful people who want this kept quiet, and they're not all human." As Patel compiled the information, Olivia and Kax stepped out into the hallway to confer. "What do you think?" Olivia asked, keeping her voice low. Kax's antennae twitched thoughtfully. It's clear there's more at stake here than we initially realized. If these hybrids are as powerful as Dr. Patel suggests, their very existence could upset the balance between species. Olivia nodded, her mind racing. And if word got out about the project, it could cause panic. Humans afraid of being replaced. Aliens worried about Earth creating super soldiers. It would be chaos, Kax finished. Perhaps that's the motive behind these killings. Someone trying to prevent that chaos by eliminating the hybrids and anyone who knows about them. Before Olivia could respond, her comm unit buzzed. It was the precinct. "Chen here," she answered. "Detective, we've got another body," came the dispatcher's voice. "Same MO as the others. It's at the Central Park Biodome." Olivia's heart sank. "We're on our way," she replied, ending the call. She turned to Kax. "Looks like our killers struck again." They quickly collected the files from Dr. Patel and headed out. As they sped toward Central Park in their hovercar, Olivia couldn't help but feel they were racing against time. How many more hybrids were out there? And how long before the killer got to them all? The Central Park Biodome was a marvel of terraforming technology, a massive enclosed ecosystem that housed plant and animal species from across the galaxy. Under normal circumstances, it was a peaceful oasis in the heart of the bustling city. Today, it was a crime scene. Olivia and Kax made their way past the police barricade, flashing their badges to the officers on duty. The body had been found in the xenoflora section, surrounded by alien plants that seemed to pulse and shift in the artificial light. As they approached, Olivia's stomach turned. The victim was sprawled face down on the ground, the telltale wound at the base of the skull visible even from a distance. But what caught her attention was the victim's skin. It had a faint blue tinge that was decidedly not human. "Centaurian DNA," Kax murmured, his compound eyes taking in every detail. "The coloration is subtle, but unmistakable." Olivia nodded grimly. Another hybrid, the killer's moving fast. They approached the body carefully, mindful of the alien flora surrounding them. Some of the plants seemed to react to their presence, tendrils curling away or towards them as they passed. "Victim is male, early 30s, Kax observed, crouching down to examine the body more closely. "The wound is consistent with the previous victims." Olivia scanned the area, looking for anything out of place. The biodome was vast, with winding paths and secluded areas, perfect for an ambush. How did the killer know the victim would be here? She mused aloud. And how did they get in and out without being seen? As if in answer to her question, a nearby officer approached them. "Detectives, we've got security footage from the entrance. You're going to want to see this." They followed the officer to a small security station near the biodome's main entrance. The officer queued up the footage on a holographic display. "This is from about an hour before the estimated time of death," he explained. The footage showed the victim entering the biodome alone. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until Olivia noticed something strange. "Wait, freeze it there," she said, pointing to the screen. "Zoom in on his neck." As the image enlarged, they could see a faint shimmer on the victim's skin, almost like a heat haze. Kax's antennae twitched with excitement. A cloaking device. The killer was already with him, invisible to the cameras. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. That's some serious tech, way beyond what's commercially available. They watched the rest of the footage, but as expected, there was no sign of anyone leaving the biodome after the victim entered. "The killer must still be using the cloak," Olivia said, her mind racing. "They could be anywhere in the city by now." As they left the security station, Olivia's comm unit buzzed again. It was the lab. "Detective Chen, we've finished analyzing the DNA samples from the victims." The lab tech's voice came through. "You're not going to believe this." "Try me," Olivia said, her voice tense. "The hybrid DNA, it's not stable, it's breaking down at a cellular level. If our projections are correct, none of the hybrids would have survived more than a year or two." Olivia and Kax exchanged shocked looks. "Are you saying the hybrids were dying anyway?" Olivia asked. "Essentially, yes," the tech confirmed. "Their bodies couldn't sustain the mixed DNA long term." As Olivia ended the call, her mind was whirling with the implications. "Kax, what if these aren't murders at all? What if someone is euthanizing the hybrids before they suffer a painful death?" Kax's scales shifted colors rapidly, a sign of intense thought. It's possible, but it doesn't explain why they're killing the scientists involved in the project. Olivia nodded, running a hand through her hair in frustration. We're missing something. We need to go through those files from Dr. Patel, see if we can find a connection between all the victims. They headed back to the precinct, their minds heavy with the weight of the case. As they walked, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. How many more hybrids were out there? And how long before the killer struck again? Back at their desks, they dove into the files Dr. Patel had provided. Pages of research data, personnel files, and project reports filled their screens. Look at this, Kax said after a while, pointing to his screen. All of the hybrid subjects were volunteers, terminally ill patients who agreed to the procedure as a last resort. Olivia leaned in, her eyes scanning the information. So they were dying anyway. The hybridization was supposed to save them, but instead, it merely prolonged their suffering, Kax finished grimly. As they continued to dig through the files, a pattern began to emerge. Each of the victims, both the hybrids and the scientists, had been involved in a specific phase of the project. They're all connected to the early stages of the hybridization process, Olivia realized. The first successful attempts. Kax nodded, his antennae twitching with excitement. Which means the killer is likely someone who knows the full scope of the project. Someone who was there from the beginning. Olivia's eyes widened as a thought struck her. Or someone who was created at the beginning. Kax, what if our killer is the first successful hybrid? The idea hung in the air between them, both thrilling and terrifying. If they were right, they weren't just dealing with a murderer. They were up against a being with abilities they could barely comprehend. We need to cross-reference the list of subjects with anyone still unaccounted for, Olivia said, her fingers flying over her keyboard. As they worked, the pieces started to fall into place. One name kept coming up in the earliest project reports, always referred to by a code name, Subject 0. This has to be our killer, Olivia said, pulling up the file. But there's almost no information here. No name, no photo, just a list of genetic markers. Kax leaned in, his compound eyes rapidly scanning the data. These genetic sequences, they're incredibly complex. Whoever Subject 0 is, they're not just a simple hybrid. They're a combination of multiple species. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. A chimera, the ultimate goal of the project. As they pondered the implications, an alert flashed on their screens. Another body had been found, this time at the orbital elevator, the massive structure that connected Earth to the space stations in orbit. We need to get there now, Olivia said, already on her feet. The elevator is a major transit hub. If our killer is trying to leave Earth, they raced to the scene, their hovercar weaving through the dense city traffic. The orbital elevator loomed before them, an impossibly tall spire stretching up into the clouds and beyond. As they arrived, they were met by a scene of chaos. The body had been found in one of the main concourses, causing panic among the travelers. Aliens and humans alike were being evacuated from the area, creating a bottleneck at the security checkpoints. Olivia and Kax pushed their way through the crowd, flashing their badges. The victim lay sprawled near a bank of elevators, the familiar wound at the base of the skull. Same MO, Olivia said grimly, crouching down to examine the body. But something's different this time. Kax nodded, his antennae twitching. The body is still warm. The killer might still be here. They exchanged a look, both realizing the implications. If Subject 0 was still in the building, this might be their only chance to catch them. We need to lock this place down, Olivia said, already reaching for her comm unit. No one leaves until we've searched every inch of this place. As she gave the order, Kax suddenly went rigid, his scales shifting to a deep, alarming red. Olivia, he said, his voice low and urgent. Don't move. Olivia froze, her hand still on her comm unit. What is it? I can smell something. Someone, right behind you. Olivia's heart raced as she slowly turned her head. At first she saw nothing. Then, like a mirage coming into focus, a figure shimmered into existence. Subject 0 stood before them, a being unlike anything Olivia had ever seen. Its form seemed to shift and change, features from different species blending and separating in a dizzying display. In one moment, it appeared almost human. In the next, it was decidedly alien. "Detectives," the being said, its voice a strange harmony of tones. "I've been expecting you." Olivia's hand inched towards her weapon, but Subject Zero raised a hand. "I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'm not here to fight." "Then why are you here?" Kax asked, his own hand hovering near his sidearm. The Chimera's form rippled, settling into a more humanoid appearance. "To end this, all of it." "By killing innocent people?" Olivia challenged, her voice tight with anger. Subject Zero shook its head, an all-too-human gesture that seemed out of place on its ever-shifting features. "Not innocent, complicit. They knew what they were doing, the pain they were causing." "The hybrids," Kax said, realization dawning. "You're putting them out of their misery." "And erasing all evidence of the project's existence," Olivia added, the pieces falling into place. "But why? Why not expose it? Let the public know what was done." Subject Zero's form rippled again, a mix of emotions playing across its features. "Can you imagine the chaos that would ensue? The panic, the distrust between species? Everything we've built in the last 50 years would crumble." Olivia shook her head, struggling to comprehend the being before her. "So you took it upon yourself to play judge, jury, and executioner?" "I am the only one who can," Subject Zero replied, its voice tinged with sadness. "The only one who truly understands the suffering we endured, the abomination we've become." As they talked, Olivia was acutely aware of the crowds still trying to evacuate, of the security forces no doubt converging on their location. They were running out of time. "It doesn't have to end this way," she said, taking a cautious step forward. "Turn yourself in. Help us expose the truth, the right way." Subject Zero's form shimmered, uncertainty visible in its constantly shifting features. For a moment, Olivia thought they might have gotten through to it. Then, in a blur of motion almost too fast to follow, Subject Zero was at the elevator bank. "I'm sorry, detectives," it said, its voice echoing strangely. "But this ends now." Before Olivia or Kax could react, Subject Zero had vanished into one of the elevators. The doors closed with a soft chime, and the indicator showed it rising rapidly towards the upper levels of the elevator. "Damn it!" Olivia cursed, racing to the elevator bank. She slammed the call button, but nothing happened. "It's overridden the controls somehow." Kax was already at a nearby security terminal, his long fingers flying over the holographic interface. "I've alerted security at the upper levels, but given Subject Zero's abilities..." Olivia nodded grimly. "They won't be able to stop it. We need to get up there now." They found an emergency stairwell and began the long climb up. As they ascended, Olivia's mind raced. What was Subject Zero's endgame? Why come to the orbital elevator? After what felt like an eternity of climbing, they burst out onto one of the upper concourses. The view was breathtaking. Through the massive windows, they could see the curve of the Earth below and the star-studded blackness of space above. But they had no time to admire the view. Ahead of them, they could see a commotion near the airlocks that led to the space-bound shuttles. "There!" Kax shouted, pointing with one long finger. Subject Zero stood before one of the airlocks, its form rippling and changing as it effortlessly incapacitated the security guards that tried to stop it. As Olivia watched, the Chimera placed its hand on the airlock's control panel. The door began to cycle open. "Stop!" Olivia shouted, drawing her weapon. "Don't do this!" Subject Zero turned to face them, its features settling into an almost serene expression. "It's already done, detectives. The project dies with me." With that, the Chimera stepped backwards into the airlock. The door began to close. Olivia and Kax raced forward, but they were too late. The airlock sealed shut with a hiss of pressurization. Through the small window, they could see Subject Zero. It raised a hand in what might have been a farewell gesture. Then, to Olivia's horror, it reached for the outer door controls. "No!" she shouted, pounding on the airlock door. But there was nothing they could do. The outer door opened, and Subject Zero was sucked out into the void of space. In moments, it was gone, nothing more than a speck against the backdrop of stars. Olivia slumped against the airlock door, her mind reeling. Beside her, Kax stood in stunned silence, his scales a muted, somber blue. "It's over," Olivia said quietly, the weight of everything they'd discovered pressing down on her. "But what do we do now? How do we explain any of this?" Kax turned to her, his compound eyes reflecting the starlight. "We tell the truth, or as much of it as we can. The world needs to know what happened here, even if we can't reveal everything." Olivia nodded slowly. She knew he was right, but the thought of the task ahead was daunting. They would need to carefully navigate the political and social minefield that this case had become. As they made their way back down to the lower levels of the orbital elevator, Olivia couldn't help but think about Subject Zero. In the end, it had sacrificed itself to keep the secret of the hybridization project. But was that truly the right choice? Or had they just lost the key to unlocking a new era of interspecies cooperation? These were questions that would haunt Olivia for a long time to come. But for now, she and Kax had a job to do. They would write their report, face the inquiries, and do their best to ensure that nothing like Project Chimera ever happened again. As they stepped out of the orbital elevator and into the bustling city below, Olivia looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, drifting in the cold emptiness of space, was the body of Subject Zero, the ultimate product of humanity's ambition and hubris. "Come on, partner," she said to Kax, squaring her shoulders. "We've got work to do." And with that, they headed back to the precinct, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this brave new world of humans and aliens, where the line between species was no longer as clear as it once was. The case of the Starfall Conspiracy was closed, but its repercussions would be felt for years to come. And in the vast expanse of the galaxy, who knew what other secrets were waiting to be uncovered?